reason why I genuinely believe, as we all sit here today together, that because of this device that many of you are holding, we are living in the most opportunistic time ever to put yourself into a place of happiness. And happiness comes in all forms. And I think a lot of business and entrepreneurship, but I definitely want to articulate today a framework that speaks to how do you get happy because of how much opportunity there actually is. Let me take a step back. I was born in the Soviet Union in 1975, a little ways ago. I came to America when I was 3 years old. It was a very challenging upbringing in the first couple of years. 6 family members in a studio apartment. We struggled. We had to learn a new language. We started from the bottom, no question. As you can imagine, my parents are very much my heroes. My mom stayed home and raised kids. My dad worked every day, many hours a day. First as a stock boy, putting bottles on the shelf in a liquor store in Jersey for only $2 an hour. So very humble beginnings where the Vaynerchuks come from. But entrepreneurship was definitely foundational in happiness that we were able to create over that period of time. My dad worked quite a bit. Eventually, he became the manager of that liquor store. And that's when we moved to New Jersey, outside of New York City. And that's where I mainly grew up. And that is where my entrepreneurial career began. I always wanted to work. It came natural to me. It's what I wanted to do. When the summer days happened and all the kids wanted to play, I wanted to go wash people's cars. I wanted to sell lemonade. I wanted to do business. It was always in me. It's what made me happy. When I was 5, 6, 7 years old, I convinced all my friends to stand behind booths from the lemonade that I made. And I would make signs and try to think about how to market. Long before the internet, I cared about one core thing, which was the attention of the person that I was trying to reach and how I could get them excited to buy my thing. Eventually, after lemonade, I started my first kind of real business. In America, in the 80s, baseball cards, sports cards that people could trade became very big, and I rode that wave. I got very involved. I love sports, and I love even more buying packs of cards, getting good cards, and reselling them. And that's really where I learned much. To think that sitting here today and having so many people clap for you on the complete other side of the world, and so much of that was what I learned in the malls and conventions in New Jersey selling these cards. It's remarkable. I'm very humbled. I very much appreciate the warm welcome when I came out here. And I'm setting up this framework because I think, as I was getting ready for this conference and I looked at so much of the chatter about the conference and obviously phenomenal Instagram account of our hosts and kind of just looked, the thing that I've become fascinated about and the thing that I want to talk about today is really 2 things. Literally right before I came out here with the organizers, they're like, talk about the how. And I asked them, I said, the how here or the how here? What's interesting to me now that I've been a little older and had my career, and I'll go back to it in a minute, frame it up, but as I'm segueing, what's interesting to me is every wonderful person that I'm looking at right now, for them to get what they want, happiness, forget about money for a minute, happiness, for them to get what they want, it actually is only one of 2 things, here or here. And here represents doing the work, knowing what to do. My whole career, as I got more known on the internet, I did not want to be a motivational speaker, and I spent many years not talking about this. I mainly talked about this. But after a while, what started happening was I started reading enough comments, because I read all my comments, and I just started realizing so much of why people can't get there has to do with this, that I started talking about it more over the last 4 or 5 years. But I think they both matter. You could be the most optimistic, happy person up here, but if you don't put in the work, and if you don't know what work to put in, it's not gonna happen. Optimism is very close to delusion. However, I believe that optimism is the fuel to practicality, right? If you don't believe you're doing it for a reason or it's exciting, you're not gonna wanna put in the hours of the work. And so that's who I've always been. I've always been ambitious and happy. I was very fortunate. I had a tremendous mother who loved me me very, very much, so I felt good. However, she did not create entitlement. When I lost or when I was doing bad, she told me. She didn't make a fake environment, which is a huge factor. And to be honest, my biggest concern about the last 20 years of parenting, too much fake environments, too much entitlement, which is why so many people struggle when they go into the real world, because the real world doesn't care. The real world is not your mama anymore. And so I think about those things. Fast forward, I was very good at selling baseball cards. When you're making $3,000 or $4,000 a weekend when you're 14 years old, you've got it. I was good, fine. But then my dad eventually bought a liquor store and he dragged me into the liquor store when I was 14. I started making $2 an hour, bagging ice. This was huge for me. If I didn't have that transition, all the money I was making as a young kid, it came so easy because I was naturally talented. I think not having that struggle of losing all that because my dad forced me to work in the store and making $20 a day, that really helped me. And I learned a lot in that liquor store. Most of all, what I learned was to watch people. Today, after this talk, I will go to the airport and on my flight, I will literally read most of the comments on Twitter, on Instagram, your DMs. I will read them and I'll read them to understand, was there anything I said in this hour that stood out, that didn't hit, that did hit? I learned that watching people, and more importantly, understanding people, and most importantly, being empathetic to people was the best way to build a real business, to build something meaningful. The biggest problem, I'll tell you right now, one of the biggest reasons most people in this room, if they decide to start an entrepreneurial venture, a side hustle, whether you try to sell something in your home on Facebook Marketplace, which, oh, by the way, I'm going to bring up later, my biggest belief that the quickest way for many people here to start is to sell stuff on Facebook Marketplace, but I'll talk about that later. Whether it's that, whether you're finally ready to start your podcast on Spotify, whether you're going to build your Instagram profile or meme page because you want brand dollars, whatever you're up to in this room, the reality is that if you have to put in so much work, but so much of what comes out of people's mouth or what they post is selfish, not selfless. It's what you want. You want them to buy it. You want them to like your post. You want them to follow you. The biggest reason I have the luxury of standing here today is from the wine business to the content I made on YouTube when it first came out to everything I've done over the last 8 to 9 years in my books, in all my free content. I've always thought, how do I bring more value to you than I get in return? It's very simple. Karma, or doing the right thing, always works. The problem is most people are impatient. The reason most people are impatient, especially in cultures like mine, Eastern European, in cultures like here, there's too many people in here that are trying to get successful too fast because they want to prove it to their parents. And in that impatience is a very important point. My friends, the number one thing I fear, period, is that people live their lives based on other people's opinions. The number one thing that I have seen as I've gotten older that has been very obvious to me is that most of the people here today do many of the things they do because of 1 to 5 people's opinions in their lives, whether their parents, their spouse, their older sibling, their neighbor. Living your life predicated on the judgment of somebody else is the great weakness of the human being. The biggest reason, do you know how many people are here today just to get affirmation from me to go and do something? I mean it. And it's fascinating to me, and I'm empathetic. I understand, and I want to talk about it a lot, because no matter how I tell you how to leave 500 comments on Instagram posts, or what time to post your posts, or why you should start a Spotify podcast tomorrow, or how you actually list an item on Facebook Marketplace, no matter what I tell you, if you post the first day and the person that you're worried about has a bad opinion of it, it's already game over. And so I flew all the way here 24 hours to put pressure on what is the most obvious conversation, which is, are you prepared to finally get quiet in your head and not allow the opinions of others to dictate your behaviors? Every person here knows what they want to do.
Can we prime ourselves to feel good? Yes or no? What if you knew you would have a really important conversation with your kid or your spouse or your loved one, and you're starting to feel a little tension because you don't want to deal with this because you love them, you don't want to deal with the bullshit, but you know you got to? In this state of being primed about it, how's it gonna go? But if you primed yourself with laughter or joy or playfulness, and now you go to be with them, and somebody goes, no! And you go, that'll with them real quick, won't it? They don't want to deal with you enjoying yourself. So we are in charge. Here's the point. Life changes the moment you make the decision that you're 100% responsible for your experience of life. Not responsible like a heavy, response-able. If you're responsible, you're able to respond. You can only respond and be able to do that if you own yourself. And if you know people can do anything, but still you're the authority of what it means to you. You're the authority of your own emotions. You're the authority of your own actions. Who's with me on this? Say I. And blaming other people, which the human mind is always looking to do, will never make you happy, never make you fulfilled, never bring you closer to people, never make you grow. So when you're willing to take that level of responsibility where you're like making judgments and you go, oh, that person's such a bullshitter, such a liar. One of the things I always do is I do a reversal in my head and go, you're such a liar. No, I'm not. Where are you? Well, I did about that once. Who's ever said something and after you said it thought to yourself, what I just said was total. How many of you ever thought this? How many of you ever heard someone else say something and thought to yourself, what they just said is... See, if you can see it in someone else, they can see it in you. Better to just own it and let go. Because that's what the mind does. If we let the mind run us, we're going to have a tough time. This mind serves me. I don't negotiate with it. Remember I told you? I don't say, well, I'll do this. Well, maybe we could do it. Maybe we'll jump in the water now. It's like, it knows I'm not here to negotiate. When I say it, we do it. That's what we want to train ourselves to do today. Who's up for that? Say I. So the first step to that would be priming. So let me show you exactly what I do for 10 minutes. By the way, my son, people have around him enough, he laughs so much, he is a priming to other people when he shows up in the room. Because they're around Josh enough, and they know at any moment Josh could crack them up, and there's an unconscious anticipation of it. Does that make sense? So even if something's stressful, they're almost on their edge that Josh is going to do something of this nature. It's an incredible skill. It's an incredible gift. So here's how I prime myself. I do 3 things. First, before I do the 3 things, whenever you want to make a change or improve something, the first place you want to improve it is in your mental, emotional state. If you do something from a pissed off state, from an exhausted state, from a frustrated state, from a weak state, it won't matter what you do. The thoughts are weak when you're in a weak place. The actions are weak. So the first thing we're going to do is I'm going to show you a simple breathing pattern. And the breathing pattern, if you're familiar with yoga, it's like breath of fire. It's similar to breath of fire. And it's a movement. And what it's going to look like is this. You're going to sit up in your chair with energy. I'll show you what we'll do and then we'll do it. We're going to raise our hands up as we take the air in, and then you're going to blow it out. Only you're going to blow it out your nose. Now to do that, what actually changes biochemistry and what will get you to wire and fire a new set of patterns that are more elegant, more rewarding, more impactful than the ones that society will condition you to do if you let it, okay? So 3 minutes, a minute each. And by the way, when I do it, I usually pick 2 strong ones, and then I pick something really simple and I make myself really feel the gratitude, like the wind on my face, or the smell of the ocean if I'm doing it outside by my house, or the look on one of my children's faces. And I'll just fill that up. And the reason is, if all you do is get grateful about big things, you're gonna miss most of life. You know, the astronauts that went to the moon, think about that journey. Think about, as a child, these guys dreamed of being an astronaut. They competed with hundreds of thousands of people, and then a few of these guys get on that rocket and go to the moon. And imagine, you walk on the moon, you look back, and you see that picture we've all seen of the blue-green Earth that's so beautiful, and it's not a photograph, they were the ones there seeing it. Talk about an experience. And then they face their fears and come in, they land successfully in the ocean, and they're rescued. And then there's a ticker tape parade in New York, they shake the president's hand, and now what do? You're 32 years old, and you walked on the fucking moon! What do you do now for adventure? And if you study the astronauts, Buzz Aldrin, all these guys, I had a chance to interview most of them, not all, but 3 of them. Almost all of them wrote about, described what happened to them. They no longer had a compelling future. How do I have an adventure? I walked on the moon. Everything else is small by nature. And as a result, they got depressed. Most of them abused alcohol and drugs. Why? Because they're looking for adventure on a moon run and they missed the adventure in a smile. So I train myself daily, prime myself to find those little things that are so beautiful and feel them. Because the more I feel them, the more I can give that to someone else. The more I can move that direction, the more I can enjoy as well. It's putting the mask on me first. Who's with me on this? Say I. Okay? So that's, after we do our breathing, step 1 of the 3 steps. First the breathing, then the 3 steps. 1, gratitude. 3 minutes roughly, a minute each. 3 different moments you can feel grateful for. and feel it, enjoy it, savor it, live in it. Next 3 1/3 minutes. Second piece we're gonna do is you're gonna feel the energy in you and do a prayer or a blessing. Now, I know many of you are not religious. I'm not suggesting you need to be, but almost all of us know there's a power in love. You know, if God was love and we didn't come up with all the other names for God, you wouldn't have much argument between people. So imagine that what you're going to do is imagine energy of God, the universe, whatever you want to imagine, coming down into you like a white light and breathing it down in through your body, down your legs, into the earth, and then coming back up and out again. So it's, and then comes back up. And you don't have to do this with your hands, but I'm trying to show you what the feeling is. And while you're doing this, what you're going to do during those 3 minutes is you're going to give thanks. It's like a prayer saying, heal my body, my mind, my emotions, strengthen me, make me the best I can be, strengthen my love, my passion, my courage, whatever it is that you value in yourself. And you feel that happening. Of the 3 minutes, I do that for about 1.5 minutes, and the other 1.5 minutes, I then take that energy through me and I send it in a circle around to my children, to my family, to my friends, to my coworkers, to my associates, to my partners, to the people I meet on the street, to my clients. And so it's taking the energy, and now you might sound like woo-woo stuff, but the idea of allowing your nervous system to heal and strengthen, just the focus of that alone, for you is strong, and sending to others as well. So you can think it's all bullshit, but try it and decide based on the experience. If you do it a while, I think you're going to find it'll deepen that sense of gratitude, because it becomes not only gratitude, but a healing, a strengthening, and a gift to those you love. The last 3 minutes, I call 3 to thrive. You're going to think of 3 things that you really want to accomplish or achieve, but instead of like hoping it happens or thinking about it happening, you're going to step in your mind and experience it as if it's done. You're going to see it or feel it, breathe it, celebrate it like you've already achieved the goal. What you're doing is training your reticular activating system. And we talked about this the other day, the part of your brain that notices things. When you did, before you bought that car or outfit, you never noticed them. Now you buy that car outfit, those cars and outfits are everywhere. How come? Because your RAS, now that you own one, says this is important. I need to pay attention to this. Well, when you get clear what you want and you see it as done and feel it and create it in your mind and your heart, and you celebrate it, there's a sense of certainty that enters your body, and your reticular activating system starts to go to work on making it happen.
I get to speak. I get to speak all over the world, and it's always an honor and a privilege. And I always tell people, Saban has even brought me down to Alabama a few times, and I told him he's putting my VFL card in jeopardy, right? But it's nothing like being back in Tennessee. The love is different, the energy is different, and it's special, and it's always a privilege and an honor. And so before I get started, I want to make sure I express my gratitude to Pastor Davis and his wife. Thank you all so much for thinking enough of me and providing me with this opportunity. I want to thank Jason. I want to thank Chris. We rode down from the airport together, for them taking their time to come and get me. Also to the Sparta campus. It's a pleasure to be with you guys as well. And as I was standing back in the little alleyway here and I was watching that video, man, that video was awesome, right? And I was watching it and I'm like, man, I thank God that's not the other video that ESPN did, right? Because ESPN did a video and it was pretty cool, right? And I'll never forget, I was home one day in Atlanta with my wife and our 2 children, and we got an 8 and a 9-year-old, 11 months apart, Irish twins, give us a run for our money every day of the week. And I was hanging out and the producer called about the film. And so when I picked up, he said, hey, Ink, what are you up to? I said, man, just hanging out, getting a little family time. He said, I need you to take a seat. I got some news I want to share with you. I sat down. I said, what you got? He said, do you remember the film we did? I said, of course, man, forever indebted to you guys for it. He said, well, it's nominated for an Emmy. I said, man, that's pretty cool. I said, give me a second. I want to go in the kitchen. I want to share this with my wife. And so me and my wife, we've been at it since 5th grade, puppy love, the whole 9. So I go in the kitchen and I say to my wife, I said, babe, you're not going to believe it. The film with ESPN is nominated for an Emmy. And my wife was like, whatever. And I was like, no love? Right? And she was like, I don't care about sports, right? And so I'm super competitive. And so I walk back into the other room with my kids and I say to the producer, man, who are we up against, right? I want to win this. I want to bring it back home to my wife, even though she doesn't care, right? To my mother, my grandma, like I want to win this. And the first name he says was, Ink, there's a film about Muhammad Ali. I said, we lost. I said, we lost, right? And we ended up losing, but I got nominated, so it's all good, right? Yeah.
If you suffer from time excusitis, the cure is simple. Mind you, it's not necessarily easy, but it is simple. Here it is.
Resolve now never to say, I don't have the time or I'm too busy. Always seek ways to accommodate new challenges in your job or special assignments or extra time with your family. You may find yourself slipping back into the excuse from time to time, but if you do, catch yourself. When you're about to say, I don't have time, change your mind. It often helps to budget your time, just like you might budget your money. Sit down and write out a time plan. Strive to become that busy person that people seek out for special challenges, instead of another victim of excusitis. Remember, everyone has the same amount of time. The difference is in how you use it.
Look, with my health the way it is, I just do what I can to get by. I'm not about to press my luck and give myself a heart attack.
Another prominent form of excusitis is health. This ranges all the way from the chronic, I don't feel good, to the more specific, I've got such and such wrong with me. So-called bad health in 1,000 different forms is used as an excuse for failing to do what a person wants to do, failing to accept greater responsibilities, failing to make more money, failing to achieve success. Millions and millions of people suffer from health problems. But is this really a legitimate excuse in most cases? Consider for a moment the other side of the coin. The people who become fabulously successful in spite of health problems and who didn't use health as an excuse.
Franklin D. Roosevelt was confined to a wheelchair much of the time by polio, but he still served nearly 4 terms as president. John F. Kennedy was hampered by severe and sometimes crippling back pain, but he never publicly complained. Itzhak Perlman, one of the world's great violinists, has to walk with the aid of crutches. Arthur Ashe, the tennis champion, had his athletic career tragically foreshortened by heart trouble, but he went on to great success in business. There are scores of successful people in every walk of life who suffer from diabetes, multiple sclerosis, and other so-called debilitating diseases, but they don't use them as excuses. The point is simply that your physical condition doesn't need to hold you back, and for most people, health is simply no excuse for lack of success. Doctors will tell you that the perfect specimen of the human animal simply doesn't exist. There's something physically wrong with everybody. Many people surrender, in whole or in part, to health excusitis, but successful people don't.
The more you worry about your health, the worse you are going to feel. Not only that, but the more you tell other people about your bad health problems, the worse you're going to make them feel too. You see, whenever you tell someone, I feel rotten today, or I have a headache, you're really telling them, I'm a little bit dead today. And nobody, but nobody, wants to be around a dead person. The plain truth is, there are only 2 people in the world who really want to hear you complain about your health problems. One is your doctor, and the other is your mortician. Nobody else cares. Nobody else wants to hear about your bad health. Now look at the other side. When you tell someone, I feel great, look what happens. First, you make yourself feel better. Try it right now, and you'll see what I mean. Say out loud, I feel great. Come on now, say it. I feel great. It's impossible to say that and not actually feel better. Second, you make the other person feel better when you tell them how great you feel. And third, you make them feel better toward you. When anyone asks me how I'm feeling, I automatically tell them that I feel so good I can hardly stand it. And if I felt any better, I'd be worried. This makes people laugh, but it also makes me feel better, because how you feel is a product of how you think you feel. So now's the time to cure yourself from the disease of health excusitis forever. Here's how to do it.
The vaccine against health excusitis comes in 4 doses. First, refuse to talk about your health. Talking about your bad health is like putting fertilizer on weeds, and besides that, it bores people. Success-minded people defeat the tendency to complain about their health. Second, refuse to worry about your health. If you have a problem, see your doctor, but don't worry about it. It won't make things any better. It will just make things worse. Third, be genuinely grateful that your health is as good as it is. Remember the old saying, I felt sorry for myself because I had no shoes, until I met a man who had no feet. There's always somebody worse off than you are, so be glad for the good health that you do have, and don't dwell on your health problems. Finally, remind yourself that it's better to wear out than to rust out. Life is yours to enjoy enjoy. 24 hours a day. Don't waste it. Don't pass up living by thinking yourself into a hospital bed.
People ask, hey man, these kids, man, it's rough dealing with them. That's right. That's right. You think peer pressure happened overnight? We went through peer pressure. I remember as a kid, some guys said, hey Les, me and another fellow named Willie Lower, we were going home. Hey man, we're going down to Goulds, man, and knock off a grocery store. I said, look here, I don't want no part of that. I'll see y'all later. Say, y'all chicken. I said, that's all right, you say whatever you want. Low star. I'm not chicken, man, don't call me chicken. Then why don't you come? We didn't even ask you to come into place, man. All you do is just drive the car, that's all. I don't know how to drive that good. Well, we're trying to get Les to come. He's chicken. Hey, I'm not driving nothing, all right? Willie, don't care about what they say, man. Leave him alone. You want to go do it? You find somebody else to drive or you drive yourself. Come on, Willie, man. Pull him, he stop. I ain't chicken. All I got to do is drive? Yeah. I said, Willie, that sounds simple, man. Don't go, man. He went. And the next day we read the newspaper where when they robbed the store, when they came out running to a car, the merchant, the man who owned the store, came out just shooting wildly, and he hit the driver in the head. So peer pressure didn't just start in the 90s or the 80s. It's difficult and it's challenging for kids right now. And it's going to take some easy, simple methods to help bring them out of this madness, this insanity. No. Is it hard? Yes. Let's look at what we've been doing. What has worked? What has not worked? Let's look at where we want to go. What is it that we want to produce? What is it that we want to create for our young people? And as we think about that, start experimenting with different methods and techniques to create and to produce that. And begin to believe that it's possible through our commitment, through our vision, through our determination, our relentlessness. Because of our belief, it's possible that we can reduce the teenage homicide rate, the teenage pregnancy rate, the dropout rate. That it's possible, looking at what kind of world are they going to be in? As we look at the global economy, that as we begin to use our collective will and genius and resources, it's possible that we can create an educational system that not only will test their minds with information and facts and figures, but would teach them how to think and be creative. And what does it mean to be a human being and to value human life? And how do you make relationships work? How do you bounce back from adversity? It's possible that we can give them a curriculum that will give their lives a sense of purpose and direction and meaning, and teach them how to begin to know and operate on a higher level of being, where they become assets to our society rather than liabilities. What if we leave here with that kind of consciousness that it's possible, as opposed to saying we have to write this generation off, that it's possible that we were born for such a time as this and that, that maybe someone here has the idea or the method or some plan of action or an approach that can resolve many of the problems that we're facing with young people today. Whatever we have to do to save our children, it's worth it.
Now, we bring more to the next week. We bring more to the next month. We bring more to the next year. If you follow this absorb, respond, and reflect. I said to my father when he was about to turn 76, his 76th birthday, I said, "Dear father of mine, can you imagine what it's going to be like to gather up the last 75 years of your life and invest them in your 76th year?" What a difference of philosophy, rather than just hanging on one more year. Gather up 75 and invest them in the next one. Gather up the last 6 years and invest it in the next year. See, that's so powerful in communication, which we're going to study soon. So powerful. So consider this. 1, the ability to absorb. 2, the ability to respond. 3, the ability to reflect. Here's number 4. Develop the ability to act. Take action. Not hasty if it isn't required, but don't lose much time. Here's the time to act. When the idea is hot and the emotion is strong. That's the time to act. You say, Mr. Ron, I'd like to have a library like yours. See, if you feel strong about that, what you got to do is get the first book and then get the second book. Before the feeling passes and before the idea gets dim, action pronto. Action immediate. Action as soon as possible. Because if you don't, here's what happens. We call it the law of diminishing intent. We intend to when the idea strikes us. We intend to when the emotion is high. But now if you don't translate that into action fairly soon, now the intent starts to diminish. And a month from now it's cold. A year from now, it can't be found. So act. Set up a discipline when the emotions are high and the idea is strong and clear and powerful. That's the time to set up the discipline. Somebody talks about good health and you're stirred. Say, right. I need to get a book on nutrition. Get the book before the idea passes and before the emotion gets cold. Go for the book. Start the library. Start the process. Fall on the floor. Do some push-ups. Action. Got to take action. Otherwise, the wisdom is wasted. Otherwise, the emotion soon passes. Unless you put it into a disciplined activity. Capture it. Disciplines is called how to capture the emotion and how to capture the wisdom and translate it into equity. Discipline. Now here's what's important about disciplines. All disciplines affect each other. In fact, here's a good philosophical phrase. Everything affects everything else. Nothing stands alone. Don't be naive in saying, well, this doesn't matter. I'm telling you, everything matters. There are some things that matter more than others, but there isn't anything that doesn't matter. Okay. We all pity the man who says, well, this is the only place I let down. Not true. Key to take home. Every letdown affects the rest of your performance. Every letdown affects the rest. This is part of the educational process on personal development. If you don't take the walk around the block, you probably won't do the apple a day. If you don't do the apple a day, you probably won't start building your library. If you don't build your library, you probably won't keep a journal, and you won't take pictures, and then you won't do this, you won't do wise things with your money, won't do wise things with your time, won't do wise things with your possibilities and relationships, and the first thing you know, 6 years of that accumulated, and we say you have messed up. So the whole key to reversing that process now is to start picking up these disciplines. Now here's the positive side. Every new discipline affects the rest of your disciplines. Every new one affects the rest. That's why action is so important. The least action, the smallest action. Take it. Because when you start accomplishing and the value starts to return from that one action, it'll inspire you to do the next one and the next one and the next one. You start walking around the block, it'll inspire you to get an apple. Get an apple, it'll inspire you to get a book. Get a book, it'll inspire you to get a journal. Get a journal, it'll inspire you to grow, develop some skills. All disciplines affect each other. Every lack affects the rest. Every new affects the rest. The key is to diminish the lack and set up the new. And you've started a whole new life process. Key. Also, one more thought on discipline. Here's the greatest value of discipline: self-worth, self-esteem. People are teaching self-esteem these days, but they don't connect it to discipline. The least lack of discipline, and it starts to erode our psyche. One of the greatest temptation is to just ease up a little bit, right? The slightest lack of doing your best starts to erode the psyche. Instead of doing your best, doing just a little less than your best. Sure enough, you say, well, it's just going to affect my sales. No, it's going to affect your consciousness. It's going to affect your philosophy. Now you've begun in the slightest way to affect your own philosophy. Here's the problem with the least neglect. Neglect starts as an infection, and if you don't take care of it, it becomes a disease. And one neglect leads to another. And the worst of all, when neglect starts, it diminishes our self-worth, our self-confidence, our self-value. You say, well, how can I get back my self-respect? I'm telling you, you don't have to go to 29 classes. All you have to do is start the smallest discipline that now corresponds to your own philosophy. Like I should, and I could, and I will. No longer will I let neglect stack up on me so that I will have the sorry scenario 6 years from now, giving some excuse instead of celebrating my progress. That's the key to discipline, okay? Let's get kids involved in the least of discipline. One more, and then one more, and then another one, and then another one, and then some more. And the first thing you know, you're starting to weave the tapestry of a disciplined life into which you can pour more wisdom and more attitude and more strong feeling, more faith and more courage. Now you've got something, a vessel in which to put it. And now the equities start to flow. And the early return, I'm telling you, if you'll start this process, the early return will have you so excited. You'll commit yourself to this strategy for the rest of your life. You'll never go back to the old way. Join a new crowd. Join a new group. The disciplines to do. Take action.
There are people in your life who are just hanging on to you, pulling you down, negative, don't believe. They just they like dead weight. You gotta let them people fall off, man. You gotta let these people go. Because when you get rid of them, then you can orbit to where God wants you to go. So that's what you have to remember about the journey. That you're going to lose people along the way. The whole time you're going to lose a lot of people. So I hope that makes sense to you, you know. When I speak, I don't use paper, you know, I don't write and then talk. I only come if people will allow me to say what's in my heart, you know. I don't like writing it down. I know my life. If you ask me about my life, I don't gotta write that down. I've been living this the whole time, so I speak. I don't want to offend anybody. I speak. I'm kind of loud, you know. See, like the baby, I'm kind of loud, you know. And so that's how I talk the way I talk, because I'm passionate. I want young people to get to where God has planned for you. I want, and that's why I'm so passionate. because you can be great, but you have to make the decision to be great. This is a decision. God gives us the power of choice. You get to decide if you want to work at the bank, if you want to ride a bus, if you want to sail the ocean. You get to make decisions. You've got to make smart decisions for your life, but you have the power. And when you include God, you have the power to be anything. You can be great or you can be nothing. You have to make the decision. If you like being nothing, it's okay. It's okay. I don't want to be with you, but you can make the decision. But what you cannot do is allow your friend next to you who has decided to be nothing to cause you not to be nothing. That's what you got to be careful of. If your friend don't want to do the things that's necessary, you should stop being his friend.
I started out in door-to-door sales. By mistake, but I did, and it changed my life. I admire what you're doing. I want you to understand that. I know what you're doing. I did it for years. You can track back a $500 million net worth for me now to knocking on doors when I was a 21-year-old kid. So those of you guys in this room with a dream to do something great with your life, and you're kind of average and ordinary, maybe you're not the smartest dude in the world or the biggest dude in the world, but you want to do something great with your life, maybe I can be an example of that. Because I know what it's like not to feel great about what you're doing, to doubt whether you're doing this. And I just got to tell you something. I'm an example this stuff pays off, okay? So I'm going to take you through some of those keys that I went through. Actually, I started knocking doors kind of by mistake. I got recruited into the financial services business. There's a bunch of these old, stale financial dudes in there. And they kept telling me, hey, our average market, we want married people who own a home, who have kids. Middle America for our products, right? And I kept thinking, how come you don't just go where they live? Like, if they have a house and we know the neighborhoods they live in, why don't we just go see these people? Why are we going through calls and all this roundabout easier stuff? Why don't we just knock on their door and say something? Can you guys teach me what to sell? Well, they thought that idea was hilarious, right? Who actually go knock on a door? Like, well, I would. I just wanted to win. How many of you relate to that? You just want to win. I don't care what the hell it took. If it was legal, ethical, and moral, I wanted to win. And so to dick around with me, like, so what's the script? Give me the script. This dude's name was Frank. I won't say his last name because they're all out of business now. But I remember Frank and them laughing. He's like, oh, because we were in the life insurance business. He goes, best thing to say, reverse psychology. Just when you knock on the door, when they open the door, go, you don't want to buy any life insurance, do you? I was stupid enough to think that was the real script. They were dicking around with me at the time. So I went out on that Saturday and knocked on about 200 doors. And everybody that opened the door, this dumbass little kid, me, I'd go, hi, I'm Ed Milet. You don't want to buy any life insurance, do you? And the vast majority would go, no, bam, and shut the door in my face. But one of them that day, one of them said, matter of fact, I do. We just had some guy here that was trying to rip us off. We are trying to buy some life insurance, but I'm trying to find somebody ethical who can do it. I said, I'm your guy. I literally walked in their house and sold them the insurance that day. But we were in the recruiting business, so a lot of the people that said no to me, I'd say why, and they go, I ain't making enough money to buy any life insurance. I'd say, I'm glad you said that. Are you looking for an opportunity to make secondary income? 27 of them said yes. That Tuesday night at our recruiting meeting, I had 27 freaking guests there to hear about getting recruited because I knocked on 200 doors that day. There were only 30 people at the whole meeting. I had 27 of them. And my career started to transform because I was willing to do the things other people weren't willing to do. The other thing I figured out is I was in the math business. Most of you ain't figured this out yet. That's why you're not making what you can make. At the end of the day, you got to get in a bigger hurry. You got to see more people. You got to run larger numbers. If you're going to get to the top of your field and recruit more people, sell more people, you got to see more people. The flat matter is this is a competitive sport you're in. It may not feel like a sport, it's a sport. And for those of you that do more reps, win. More contacts, win. See more people, win. Y'all with me on that? Say yes. Yeah. See, you probably thought I was going to give you some like fluffy, I don't know nothing about selling speech. You got to run larger numbers, man. Hey, sister, you aren't running big enough numbers. You want to get to the big time? You want to get to the top of what you're doing? You got to run more numbers, see more people, recruit more people, and sell more people. Okay, that's the bottom line. You don't start to see more people, I'm going to smoke you. If I knock 200 a day and you knock 50, if I see 500 and you see 5, I don't care how good you think your script is, how great you are, how persuasive you are. You take a dude like me, I will smoke you.
It's possible you can get what you want. It's necessary. If you want it, you got to go into action. You got to be willing to experiment. You got to be willing to fail and to succeed. You got to be willing to form and to develop new relationships. It's you. It's on you. You got to make that happen. Nobody's going to bring it to you on a silver platter and say, here's your dream manifested. No, it's hard. Yes, it's hard. It's difficult. Yes, right. And it's worth it.